Yep. Good evening. This is the July 16th, 2025 meeting of the Bay City Planning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening again. My name is Douglas Rise. I'm chair. Tonight with us are Commissioners Dennis Bonacek, Whitney Anderson, Ashley Meyer, Sheila Turbot, and Michael Byrne. Absent is Timothy Beckman. Did you hear from him?
No, I did not.
He is marked as absent without excuse. First order of business tonight is approval of the minutes from June 18th, 2025. Everybody's had an opportunity. I do have one correction that I note. All right. On page 4, second paragraph should be Mr. Kopchak, not Mount. There's a new mountain that we don't know about.
All right.
There are no other additions, corrections, or notations. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve the minutes as corrected.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the June 18th, 2025 minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Next is an opportunity for anyone from the public who wishes to make comment on any item not on our agenda tonight. Please come to the podium, state your name, sign or register, and you'll have 5 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, we'll move on to our next item. We have one postponed case SU 25-06 for 1001 Center Avenue. Applicant is requesting special use and site plan approval for an 8-room bed and breakfast in the O1 Office Zoning District. Pursuant to Article 16, a bed and breakfast is permitted under the table of permitted uses of Section 122.132B8 with special use approval and subject to provisions of Section 122.474, bed and breakfast inns. Terry?
All right, thank you. The drawing that you have at your desk this evening is the latest. I apologize for the lateness of the site plan, but I did want to have something on the meeting for tonight for you to review. The dimensions are being shown on the drawing here. I believe the drawing is labeled F, and the circulation pattern, as you can see, is established there. A screen wall is being shown on the north property line. There was some title search done, and there was no easement for that adjacent parking area that was on the north property line. I know Ms. Edmonds is here today, and I would ask if she could come to the podium and maybe share a little bit of the highlights of the site plan that are here.
Good evening. Thanks for being here. This is the updated site plan for 1001 Center Avenue. This site plan shows 8 parking spaces. So I realize we are 2 parking spaces short. The plan is to get a zoning board of approval variance, the next step after this. There will be 1 handicap ADA room in the hotel, in the bed and breakfast. So there's 1 ADA room shown, there's 1 ADA parking space shown adjacent to a ramp that would go up the east side of the building. enter on the front porch, so all guests would take the same pathway into the building. There is existing screening on the east side of the building as well as on Grant Street that will remain intact. The north side of the building, Terry mentioned, there was a title search done. There is no easement recorded for that north property owner. So a screening wall could be placed on that north property line. The other thing to note, guests would enter on Grant Street and then exit on Center Avenue. So that's everything to note, I believe. I don't know if I'm missing anything, Terry. The parking spots are all labeled 9 by 19. The ADA spot is 8 with the adjacent 5 feet by 19 as well.
Now, I would note up front that the ramp, seeing that it would be constructed within the historic district, I'd have to review the work review list that they have for structures in the side yard like that, but typically if it can be seen from the street frontage, then I believe the list that the Historic District Commission goes by would have some type of review for a certificate of appropriateness that would be issued.
There were a couple other, so this is letter F, there were a couple other site plans that were done of moving around parking spaces and the ADA ramps. This is kind of the most efficient use of space with this small site and dealing with a historic structure and getting it to ADA compliancy. Two other thoughts were to remove parking space 5 in the rear interior of the building. You could do an ADA lift inside, but that would remove a parking space. So we would, not be necessarily, we would be further away from compliance there. The other spot was on Grant Street. You can see that entrance coming up from the sidewalk. There was a proposal there on the west side of the building, closest to Trinity Church, an ADA ramp there with the ADA parking spot in that space, but that would also fall under historic review. So we've looked at quite a few different options for this site. I believe this is the most efficient with the 8 parking spaces, keeping screening intact.
I'm sorry, I have to backtrack a little bit. This is a special use. It does require a public hearing. We do need a motion to go into public hearing for this site plan or special use permit. So I would entertain a motion to open public hearing.
Move to go into public comment for SU 25-06.
Second.
Support.
I have a motion and support to open public hearing on SU 25-06. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I apologize. Ms. Edmonds, could you come back to the podium, please? Didn't mean to cut you off. It was an oversight on my part.
I believe that's everything I have to note for this plan.
I actually sit on the HDC also because I'm fun like that. I think Terry's absolutely right. I think all handicap ramps have to come before the HDC. I can't speak for the board or anything without seeing any specifics, but my guess would be, and I've sat on the board for a good amount of time now, that this plan of the ones you mentioned, and I did look at your other site plan, so I saw kind of that other thing. That on the Grant side, that's way more visible. So my guess, strictly guess, not looking at anything, is probably that this would also probably be the more desirable plan for the HDC. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, especially losing your parking spaces and stuff. I mean, this seems like the best.
Efficient, okay, good to know.
Anyone else?
Looking at the plan, the first thing that strikes me is these are 90-degree parking spaces. By our ordinance, there must be a 24-foot cruise lane when the parking spaces are oriented at 90 degrees. Part of that stems from the fact that we want to make sure if there's going to be a clockwise rotation of traffic through this site, that those spaces are angled so that it is obvious to anybody that parks there that they are only supposed to go in one direction. The way this is set up, anybody could back out and go the wrong way. So I have an issue with that right off the bat. Looking at the barrier-free parking space, it's labeled van. Well, the first space must be van accessible. However, the striped area with the van accessible space must be 8 feet wide, with an 8-foot wide parking space. And the way this is laid out, people exiting the van from a wheelchair lift come out the passenger side. So the space is kind of flip-flop from where it should be if it was going to be acceptable. I'm also looking at parking space labeled number 5 with the door exiting right there. That space is no longer officially big enough with the door exiting out onto it. Issues there are, somebody pulls into the space while somebody's walking out and they don't stop in time. Even with the parking block there, that parking block automatically shortens up the space. So anybody parking that space is going to be sticking out 3 feet on the backside. I understand the concept. I'm fully in support. But these issues, if we let this project get away with this, we have to let everybody who comes to this with a similar situation get away with it. So I have those issues in the forefront. You say there's no easement and you're putting up a screening wall. What's happening to the off-street parking for your neighbor? It just goes away?
I don't believe that's my issue. No easement's been recorded.
Okay.
I think that's not my issue.
That's all I have for now.
In response to Dennis on the proper space around the handicap spot, it shows here as having a 5 foot, if I'm reading that correctly, striped area, but is there any reason why she couldn't just stripe it all the way to that other point? That would make it easily 8 feet. Because isn't that what you said it is, 8 feet? That would resolve the problem, would it not?
It would. I will also note, my nephew's handicapped. Not all handicapped people get out of passenger side of vehicles. They have a van. For spaces like this, especially in historic sites, most handicapped people, people with a disability, now have access out of both sides of vehicles. It would be quite limiting for a person with a disability to only be able to get out of a passenger side.
Terry, is there, and this is just my own ignorance, but is there an official that would oversee accessibility issues? Is that really our purview?
Well, that is part of the building code, so a comment would be received from the building department to make sure that any handicap ADA space would be marked properly. So that would be part of the, the challenge is, officially, some of this doesn't require a building permit. Now, the ramp would, but, the access drives aren't changed. Now, it does say the new driveway. One of the things is coverage of the existing pavement. I believe that was on this site plan, if I'm not mistaken, is that you're not really increasing the area of pavement. It appears that other than maybe this area right here, if that was a green belt, but there will be some other reviews that would be forthcoming to answer that question.
The other option that's been on the other site plans is the ADA space has been in parking spot 1 and 2. But like I said, we can remove parking space 5. Again, this is gonna have to go before ZBA because this site is impossible to get 10 spaces the requirement for the ADA van, the requirement for screening, the requirement for the ramp. So, I mean, it depends on what way we want to slice this site, but the other issue is typically, maybe I'm mistaken on this, the ADA space needs to be as close as possible to the ramp. If that space moves to 1 and 2, then that ramp space moves back over to Grant Street, which is historically probably not aesthetic.
What about if, kind of what we were talking about before, what if instead and I don't know what the clearances are on both sides, but if you shifted that spot kind of to the end, to the corner of the building, so that on one side you had the driveway, so it's open, and then you had a 5-foot strip on the other side. So it's taking up the same footprint, you have the same number of spaces. I don't know if that goes along with building code, but if it did, hypothetically, that would fix your problem, wouldn't it?
I'd like to remind our commissioners, we're not here to help her solve the problem. We're here to decide what the ordinance says.
That's all I have to note then, if we're not here to solve problems.
I have a
This is the site I'm proposing.
I have a question.
Sure.
We don't see any notations on this site plan for trash receptacles.
Trash receptacles will go up in that northeast corner above parking spot 8 is where it's been proposed on other sites.
Is that, by ordinance, does that have to be a dumpster, or can she still have?
Well, the setback for a dumpster is 10 foot from a property line, so that's always the issue with the placement of dumpsters, is that 10 foot from the property lines requirement.
But what's the requirement, what does she have to have for trash? Like, can she still use city containers, or does she have to?
Well, there's always the option up to a certain number of bins, as Doug had noted in some earlier cases with multiple family. There is always that option of the blue bins, but then if a dumpster would be placed, it would have to meet the setbacks, be screened, have the proper, concrete base to it and that.
Is it the same ordinance that would apply for multi-dwelling units like anything else? I mean, because I think 10 was if I remember correctly, wasn't it 10?
10 or 11, I can't
Yep,
remember.
I believe it
was
would.
One of those.
Okay, so I think it's 10, unless my memory is terrible. So, I'm sorry, it's only going to be an 8-unit, right?
Nope, that's a good question as far as the trash receptacles.
There's no setback requirements on the 95-gallon containers.
No, there is not. I know when that ordinance was adopted and they started with the blue bins, there was talk about doing some setbacks or where they could be placed, but that never materialized.
I have a question.
The question would be, are the blue bins treated in the same manner as a trash receptacle / dumpster? I would say it would make it easier to be 10 foot away from the property line, because typically those are going to be located closer to the building, so that 10-foot issue might go away, and then it's just a matter of the proper placement for pedestrians and things like that to get to them.
I kind of have a question for Dennis in regard to your comment about straightening out the spaces and having the proper, turning radius, so to speak. If she didn't screen, because I know that doesn't exist now, right?
No.
Correct, okay. Would that resolve the problem?
As long as the spaces are 90 degrees, she does not have enough room for the cruise lane that's required by ordinance.
Right, what is the
24 feet.
24?
Because as I said, with this 90-degree parking, people can pull out and go whichever way they want, regardless of whatever signage or paint marks are there. And, if somebody was coming in off of that drive from Center while somebody else was going out, and the person on Center had to wait for that person to leave, you're going to have a stack up on Center that could lead to rear-end accidents. As far as going the other way at the top, I'm not so worried about it as far as Grand Street is concerned. But once again, the ordinance specifically states 90-degree parking needs a 24-foot cruise lane. So if the parking here, and I know you don't want me to offer suggestions, but if the parking were turned to a 30-degree angle, that may allow you to get this to work. In the area where spaces 1 and 2 are pushed way in, that could serve as an area for your dumpsters. But I can't support this site plan the way it's laid out because of the fact that the cruise lane is not adequate for 2-lane traffic.
Signage wouldn't be an acceptable solution to that?
Like I said, what stops somebody from going the wrong way? If you've got people parked at an angle, they're going to back out and go in that direction. If you've got perpendicular parking, they can back out and go whichever way they want. So I look at what our ordinance states, and it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's a unique attempt at getting around it, but that 12-foot cruise lane only applies for zero-angle parking, which means parallel to the curb. So as I look at this, I can't support this layout because it violates the ordinance.
I would agree with the angled parking and having the vehicles being able to back out of the parking space and know which direction they would have to go. So I do agree with the 90-degree having to be changed. If it is set up on that one-way, then you can have a minimum of I believe it's a 12-foot drive for the one-way coming through there. But it is correct, if it is an idea or a vehicle where both have the possibility of passing, they would be 24 foot. So we do have to make sure that the one-way is established for it to work. Now, the other option would be adding this to the variance request. I'm not sure, how the Zoning Board of Appeals would, make a decision on that particular case, because they always do try to look for different options or a lesser variance that might be required. But again, if we can get the one-way established, then that site would accommodate that.
We're obviously not talking about the issue that we still don't have 10 parking spaces. So that would be the variance request that we're talking about kicking onto the ZBA, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So that becomes a dimensional variance request, which the configuration of the parking spaces would fall into that same category, wouldn't it?
The recap, say that again, please.
Because we're talking about, it's a dimensional variance request because there's not enough room for 10 spaces.
Correct.
So as long as it's a dimensional request, does the configuration, the angled configuration or not, of the parking spaces not fall into that same variance request?
I would say it's in a separate category because there is a specific table that speaks to the angle and the length of the parking. So it would be a section of the zoning ordinance in addition to the number calculation that's required. So it would be on one application, but it would be two variance types.
Two different variance requests.
Two different variances.
Okay, do we have any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, Ms. Edmonds. Does anyone from the public wish to make comment on the request for special use? Please come to the microphone, state your name. You'll have 5 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, Terry, did we have any communications received on this?
Nope, I have not received any since the first meeting.
Okay, do we have any other comments from, we're ready to close the public hearing and then we can go into the business portion, but Dennis?
Move to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Support.
I have motion and support to close the public hearing on SU 25-06. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Do we need a motion to go into the business portion, Terry? No,
No.
because our motion when we finish
Close
discussion
the
will be, okay. So we'll open this up for discussion regarding our potential decision. Dennis, I laud your knowledge of the ordinance because I didn't pick up on that one. But I think in support of the applicant's endeavor here, we could do a conditional approval based on ZBA action on a dimensional variance request.
Based on the existing site plan, we'd have to make a contingency that the applicant comply with section 122-382, which is the dimensional requirements for parking. I don't have a problem doing that. I know we need to push this on to the ZBA, but in terms of what the applicant is going to be pursuing, based on the fact that it's just a reduction in parking spaces, a better laid out parking situation would probably go a long way to getting the ZBA to approve it. The way it's set up, yeah, I mean, I can't agree with it unless we actually do make that contingency that the parkings come into compliance.
Any other comments from other commissioners?
I just have a question. Is there even enough space?
Speak closer into the microphone, Whitney.
Is there even enough space for this, what is it called? Is there even enough space to have a 23-foot cruise lane, given what's laid out here? So are we debating something that actually isn't possible regardless of 90 or 30 degree? I understand there's two components of this, but if we're saying that there's not enough space for the 10, and then we're saying that we want angled parking to fit this 23-foot cruise lane when we're already at 17 feet, and that essentially, the way I'm looking at it is the width of the entrance from Grant Street, it's the width of the quote-unquote curb cut, then I don't know if that is a moot point, and that's already something that has to go to the ZBA just based on the dimensions that exist here.
If you look at that number 8 parking space, it lists its dimension as 24 feet. So if you were to carry that all the way across, the short answer would be no.
So I'm just saying, I understand that it's written there, but it does not, the site doesn't accommodate for that based on this drawing. I don't know, I've not been there to measure it. And the other point I want to make is, irregardless of how these parking spots are structured, or 90 degrees, 30 degrees, whatever it is, that has absolutely no bearing on people pulling in the wrong way from Center because they can't see those spots from Center Ave. So irregardless of how this parking is laid out, we still have to rely on signage to teach people the one way, because hypothetically speaking, we can't control human behavior, especially when they're driving. It has to be very clear signage-wise. So if we're already putting in all of this extra signage to ensure safety, then, and you know what, do you guys see where I'm going with this? Because I don't want to make this more complicated than it has to be. I don't know, I'm just speaking out off the top of my head here.
As Commissioner Banachek has pointed out, if we angle the spaces, then we don't have to worry about the drive-through or the through drive lanes.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, and that makes sense if that's feasible, but when we angle number 3, is that gonna overtake 1 and 2?
Well,
How do you
exactly,
angle 1
and
and 2? So
that
then we're
becomes,
losing more spot, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, I want to make sure all these points are out here so that we don't continue to kick the can down the street or down the road, whatever the saying is, sorry. Clearly, I don't know what I'm talking about with that, but that we're not delaying this unnecessarily. I don't know, I'm just, because one of the arguments was the potential for a rear end accident on Center that unfortunately could happen no matter what we do in the back. So I just want to be crystal clear, if we're putting in contingencies, I have no problem with that, but it has to be noted that potential from Center has no bearing on what we do in the back. And I hope that's clear. Not to
Yeah, I
step
don't know
on
where
any
the
toes.
signage element would come into play. Would that be with us or where?
It would have to be a condition as part of the approval for the one-way traffic. Directional signage is part of, a site plan typically on some of the projects, so you could require the directional signage.
and like a do not enter from Center
Right,
Avenue.
exactly. That's
Exactly, so
exactly
that
what I
has to be on there, but I just wanted to make that distinction that I don't want that idea lumped in with what is happening in the back, because, we just talked about this with the convenience store, that with that alley, who knows what those people are gonna do when they start driving around, and we have no control of that, and I don't want the applicant to bear that burden, because we could put a million signs and somebody's still gonna turn in there, unfortunately. I hope not, certainly hope not.
Terry, can I ask the applicant to come back to the podium?
Sure.
Ms. Edmonds, could you come back? I have another question that may have a bearing on this. The ordinance states for a bed and breakfast that it is the primary residence of the owner.
The innkeeper.
Well,
That can be a hired position. They have to have, sorry, I'm interrupting because I've looked into this. The innkeeper does not have to be the owner. It can be a hired position.
Correct.
What is critical is that there is someone on staff sleeping there overnight.
and I believe that's probably only while you have guests in place. I don't think that there's a requirement to be an innkeeper in a vacant building.
Right, the ordinance does read when occupants are
there, right. So am I safe to assume that you're not going to be living in this building?
I personally will not be living in this building, no.
You will be the owner.
What's that?
You will be the owner.
I am the owner of this building. The innkeeper will be a hired position in
Okay,
this building.
that's all I'm just trying to get to, because the ordinance states that there's 2 parking spaces required for the owner and the innkeeper, So that's why we're at 10. You have enough parking spaces now with 8 to handle your guest rooms, but not for the innkeeper or the owner. And that's kind of the crux of where we're at with this.
Right, and that's why, taking it to the ZBA is important. The other thing is, there's this statistic I will pull for the ZBA that hotels rarely run at 100% occupancy. They have a checkout time of 4 p.m. and a check-in time of 11 a.m. So the parking, or reverse, check-in time of 4, checkout at 11, the load of parking here will be extremely transient and much lighter than if this were an office building and people were here 7 days a week with clients, multiple hours a day. Another thing to note too with Whitney's, I wanted to bring that point up is, with this one way, I can't stop somebody from entering Center Avenue, regardless if that's a one way or not. If you want me to angle parking, I'm willing to do whatever you guys want me to do with this site to make it compliant, but we are limited on space here. So at some point, it does need to move on to the ZBA to get approval for this site, for the lesser load of parking.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You answered my question. Anybody else have any further questions of Ms. Edmonds before we excuse her? I guess not.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was the only thing I wanted to bring up, was the point that, you know, we do have enough parking spaces for her guests or for the innkeeper and 7 guests, but there is a deficiency for what the ordinance requires.
Side question that we may have answered last time, but I don't remember if we talked about it this time. Grant Street, is there street parking right there on Grant Street? And she has an entrance here with a sidewalk on the side of the building. So one option could potentially be for the innkeeper to park in the street. Obviously not for us to, that would be part of the variance conversation, but just something that would be an option for them.
Good point.
Yeah, and the O1 zoning, unlike some of the commercial zoning districts where the parking standards are exempt, O1 is one of those zoning districts where those parking calculations do come into play, because oftentimes you hear me say about, you know, a site development in a C3 that there is no standard for the number of parking spaces because the C3 is completely exempt from any of the parking requirements. So O1 is one of those districts that, you know, the calculations for the parking do have to be made.
I hate to ask a question that would open a whole can of worms, but could she potentially have it rezoned?
It would be more difficult to have it rezoned. As you know, the Planning Commission did rezone 2 lots to the east of Madison Avenue with the C3 zoning, but there's no nearby, I believe even, well, I'd have to check the zoning map on those 2 commercial properties near the church. Those might be zoned commercial, but it might be harder to try to get the rezoning of the property for that purpose.
Good luck trying to read that. I don't think when I looked at it that I saw anything other than the O1 and the residential in that immediate area.
What's institutional?
Churches,
It's a church.
Yep.
To the immediate west.
Would you like to be a church? No, I'm kidding.
Order. Any other comments that any commissioners would like to make before we move to make a motion?
Just one, you were talking about rezoning. Terry, is there some way this could be zoned commercial and still be a bed and breakfast?
Be what, Dennis? Sorry.
Whatever we're calling this, bed and breakfast.
I'd have to look in the C1 zoning district to see if that is a permitted use. I know it is in the RM1 residential, but the O1.
On the future land use map, it's marked as mixed density.
Oh, I got it right here. Let's see, what am I looking up again? Sorry, close your eyes for a minute.
I just know that from other site plan approval requests, we've been in areas where it's Zone C and parking does not become an issue because it's Zone C. So if there's a possibility of doing this, I'm not suggesting that it happen right away, but if there is a fallback, it would be nice to know that it's there.
Yeah, I'm almost there. Let's take a look at the table.
'Cause wouldn't that kind of resolve the entire issue?
I don't know if any of you remember during your training for planning commissions, but spot zoning is something that's not highly recommended that we do.
Yeah, here's the table of commercial uses. The first column is the C1, and then as I get here, it would be a special use in a C1. This would be C2, and then this would be, let's see, that should be the C2B, yep, and then the C3 is on the end, so that would be permitted. So the only district that it is allowed in is the C2A and the C3. The C2B is that highway business designation that we have for Euclid and Wilder commercial areas typically. So it would still be a special use if it was zoned the C1. But then
What's C2?
C2 is business, commercial. Because you got neighborhood commercial, you got general commercial, and then you have the C2B, which is the highway commercial, and then the downtown, which is C3.
So does that not count?
Well, the C1, we would have to look, we didn't consider a rezoning. I don't have on this thumb drive a zone, oh, I do. Let's take a quick look. All right, we should get there now. So 1001 be right here. So yeah, it would probably be considered a spot zoning because here we've got these two service stations, or at one time service stations, on either corner here. That zoning might go back several years. I'd have to see if we had a record of those two rezonings. But then as you can see, the O1 office transitions into the RM1, which transitions into the residential. So it would borderline on a spot zoning, being that far out on Center Avenue, because nothing within the surrounding area has that type of similar zoning. So it would be more difficult.
So, good idea, Dennis, but,
Yeah.
Well,
so in developing our motion, if we hone in on the angled parking issue, how many spots are we going to lose if we stick to our guns on requirement for the angle? We're going to lose at least 2, and now we're at 6.
My concern is, can she get a variance on the dimensionality from section 122.382 along with the number of spaces?
Right.
And that's going to require her to modify the site plan to show the ZBA what will work for one-directional traffic, and that she's going to have to go back to her architect for. We can make it a contingency, but it's going to have to be shoved through the ZBA in order for it to be approved in total.
but I think that's kind of up to the architect. I mean, because I could think of some ways to shift it around. I think that's kind of up to them to figure out. I mean, we can make it a contingency and then just say, you got to figure it out. I mean,
Yep, absolutely. So, are we at a point where we're ready for a motion?
I will make the motion to approve as the uses comply with the applicable zoning district use and dimensional regulations to an extent. All elements of the site plan are harmonious and efficiently organized in relation to the size, shape, character of the lot, the type and size of the proposed buildings, which we have none, the location and layout of landscaping, and off-street parking areas, which will be subject to ZBA approval, and characters of uses on adjoining properties. The location design of driveways is safe, Access to the site is designed to minimize conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians with traffic using adjacent streets and driveways. Vehicular circulation on the site is designed to be safe and convenient, assuming it is one-way clockwise traffic. Safe and convenient pedestrian and bicycle access and circulation are provided. There's public sidewalks. Off-street parking and loading areas do not comply with Article 17. 8 parking spaces are noted. However, this is going to be subject to ZBA approval once we approve this special use and site plan. And the contingency on this item is going to be that the parking matches the requirements of section 122-382 in terms of dimensionality of the parking spaces, angle, cruise lane, etc. Greenbelts, landscaping, and screening are provided in accordance with the regulations of Article 18. Walls and fences, the fence is shown with the neighboring property to the north. We're sure it will meet fencing regulations in terms of heights. Signs are going to be part of the sign code in terms of advertising the property. Adequate directional signage to prevent people from turning into the drive on Center Avenue will be required. My suggestion would be a one-way sign on either side of the drive and a do not enter sign on both sides of the drive. Refuse receptacles, that can be handled administratively. Exterior lighting can be reviewed administratively. Access routes for emergency vehicles, we've heard nothing that says it's not compliant, being that it's on a corner lot and access around the backside by the fire department is probably minimal. I think that's fine. And public utilities are provided in accordance with regulations of public utility providers, and stormwater management is not being required by the city engineer. So I move the passage of SPR 24-06. Oh, wait a minute, is that right? Yeah, that's right.
That's you. Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have support?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Good luck, Ms. Edsman.
Yep.
All right, moving on. We have 5 cases from Omnifiber. These are site plan reviews, so we don't require a public hearing on this. Terry, do you have any comments you want to make on this before we get into it?
Yeah, I'll begin by stating we knew that there were going to be utility cabinets coming. At one point, we heard there was a number of 50 utility cabinets that had to be placed. At the last meeting, I believe that number was dropped to 38. We received the information about each of the locations. The problem that we ran into was the addresses that were used. That's something that the city needs to really provide those addresses to make sure that they fit in line with the numbering of the block and for some other reasons. So we had some time working through our assessing office assigning the addresses because those were crucial to the public notices that had to go out. There was a total of, I believe, 18 that they were hoping to go on to the agenda, but when time came to put the agenda together and act on the cases, we just simply couldn't put all 18 of them on the agenda. So we selected a batch that was in a particular ward. I communicated that to Omnifiber after I had emailed them informing them that, you know, the 18 cases wouldn't go forward for the meeting tonight, that we selected 5 of them. We did ask that somebody was present today. Unfortunately, due to probably my fault, there was not earlier communication about the meeting, but they did know we were having the meeting. So I'm not sure about the representation for tonight being here or lack of being here. Similar to the case that we did process last month, which was SPR 2503, that was the utility cabinet on 13th Street. And that one was approved, and now we're just trying to follow with that. We did send out the notices as required for this meeting, surprisingly. How many notices were sent out? About 100 notices were sent out for this.
Just for these 5?
For these 5.
Only within 100 feet?
That's because we had to send to owners and occupants. So that can double it. Plus, you know, if there's units in apartments, we have to send to those units. So sometimes it can really increase the number that we have to send to.
Wow. Well, good on you.
Wahoo. And how many are we going to get?
And in the future, I would recognize, I might have stated it earlier, but this utility cabinet ordinance does need some amendments and some reworking. It is a city code of ordinance, so this particular code is not in the zoning ordinance. The utility cabinet chapter is its own code, but it does direct in that code to the Planning Commission process for site plan review. In speaking with OmniFiber, they're doing this within the city and in the surrounding townships. The city of Bay City is the only one that has an ordinance that they do have to go through this procedure. From managing or doing these utility cabinets, I could easily recommend some revisions to it, but that's a different story. Because, yeah, it is a little bit cumbersome in how the company first works with the city engineer, identifying the general locations, and then there's specific steps that are outlined for the notices. When a utility cabinet is installed, the city doesn't have to provide the notice, but the company themselves, we supply the list, and then they're responsible to notify the residents when they're starting construction of those cabinets.
And I apologize, that was 45 for the 5 utility cabinets. It was 100 for all 18.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, that's much more
Okay.
sensical. How do we
sounds
make
better.
them pay for it? No, I'm kidding.
So I
A lot of postage.
Yeah, I didn't get an email as far as, you know, the rest of the batch, but I think now that we have the address assignments for these locations worked out, it'll just be a matter of, you know, processing. And then the report there kind of has the information in the table similar to the one that was approved last year. Let's see, what else can I say? Obviously, these do get routed to all of the various city departments. So that is always confirmed, and any of that information, even if some of them might have been delayed on these, because I know I received one from Sewer a couple of days ago, but one of the reasons I would recommend changing or amending part of this ordinance is some of this is actually better handled by a phone call through Ms. Digg. Ms. Digg comes out and marks utilities. Now, it is good that the city utility departments are aware that these cabinets are coming, but on several of the forms that were returned back to us, it recommended call Ms. Digg before any work. So, yeah, there's some changes that could be made to that ordinance. So what we have here tonight is a batch of 5. each assigned a site plan review number, and then the address in which they're located. And then in the staff report, there's a photograph representing each of the areas where it would be located. Because they're individually numbered and individually paid for, I would recommend that we go through each one of them, at least recognize the number, and have a decision for each one of the five.
I did go through them individually, and there's some themes, I would say, throughout them that are of concern, I guess, to me. One thing is that I noticed at their original meeting, when we approved the others, they talked about these passive cabinets being much smaller. I think, yeah, they said 18, assuming the minutes were correct, because I didn't obviously remember, so I checked. They said 18 by 24 by 36 was what they would be for passive cabinets, but if you look at what they're applying for, they're 48 inches high. That's 4 feet tall. That's almost as tall as me, because I'm real short. You know, so these are not tiny. If you look at these pictures, they show them as these tiny little cabinets, and they're huge. And I'm not even saying that that's necessarily like, okay, it's not pretty, whatever, but when we're putting them in the right of way, one of the, you know, regulations in 34-140 says that it minimizes impediments to a driver's view of the street or the sidewalk. That's a very large cabinet. So at what point are you impeding the view of the street or the sidewalk? You know what I'm saying? Again.
So these five, though, all five of them, at least in terms of the photograph on the first page, they all say passive.
They all say what, cabinet? Is that what you said?
Passive, they all say passive cabinets.
Right, they do.
So these would be the smaller ones, correct?
The dimensions stated on the proposal says are 48 by 27 by 18. That's what these, if you look at your paragraph, the very last line of your project summary, it gives you the dimensions, 48 by 27 by 18.
Yeah, I'm looking to see on one of the earlier ones, and I'm hoping this is the one we had the drawings. I don't know if it was on the April meeting, though. Let's see. No. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't download the cabinet pictures that we had for the first review. There was a presentation that was provided, and it had shown the different types of cabinets.
There were both, I think, on that one, weren't there? There were going to be both? There were
Pardon?
going to be both types of cabinets on that first one we looked at?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I don't have it. I don't have it.
Speak for yourself. And you're sitting in a car.
Well, on the other hand, a small child on the sidewalk might not.
Exactly. And I noticed that one of these cabinets is not on the right of way, you know, is set back, which I had some questions about whose property they were putting that on and how they could put that there. But I guess that's their concern. But that's the only one, I think, of the five where it's not in the right of way like that.
Yeah, they would have to obtain some type of easement in order to place it on that location then.
It looks like it's owned by other people, so you can't really just go in there and dig it up and stick it there. That was only one of my concerns. There's also, and you know, you could get into the argument of rewriting the ordinance, but as it stands now, one of the other issues that is constantly a yes on, I'm pretty sure all of these, but maybe there's one that isn't, is that it's with, oh, maybe that one we were just talking about, but all the rest, is it within 10 feet of the intersection of a sidewalk or a street at the end of the driveway? And all of them, except maybe one, are. Add that to the fact that it's a huge cabinet, that's an issue. And I think back to the one they approved before, that was a larger cabinet, That was at the end of a street. So you're not having a lot of right of way, you don't have anybody driving past that or, these are all not at the end of streets. They're all readily traveled, two-way traffic.
One of them's right at the end of an alley, the one
Oh.
on Third Street. So,
yeah.
I mean, it could be an impediment to vision, someone coming up to that alley.
The
and
alley or something, right.
See traffic.
Which would have been less of an issue with their original dimensions they provided that are, 18 by 25 by 4 by 36, which is only a 3-foot cabinet. But that's not what we're talking here.
On the other hand, don't we have some other utility cabinets in right-of-ways that are, I can think of some that are 4 feet tall, and I think they're AT&T.
Yeah, and we do have several of them. There's actually VRAD cabinets that were done by AT&T, and then there's Bay City Light and Power has their cabinets. You can see some of those out here, and then these AT&T. So I know there's 3 different utilities with cabinets being placed in the. And then this actually is in a bigger picture, which is part of a Metro Act. And the Metro Act has something to do with telecommunications on utility poles, and Omni Fiber is, going through this process for the cabinets, but then they already went through a process to get the necessary approvals for whatever they do on the wires. So I guess there's two actions, but the Planning Commission is only tasked with the cabinet location, and then Bay City Light and Power, city management, based on what's called the Metro Act for telecommunications, they approve that component of it.
And that does kind of address one of the items on here, which is, does it interfere with other utilities or, how do they state it?
Yeah, I could ask, that the other ones, even the ones that we do have, that they be revised to accurately show, what that cabinet is. Because now we're just relying on, what that first one was approved as.
Well, and then that one that's off the street, that's not in the right of way, is right next to somebody's park or driveway. They have to safely pull out of their driveway too. And I don't know exactly, the picture isn't, perfectly angled, so I don't know whether they plan on putting it this way or this way. But, that's a very large cabinet. If hypothetically it was this way, running parallel, the large portion of it running parallel to the driveway, you're going to almost fully obstruct that person's view from their driveway. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to suggest we start taking these one at a time so that we can have discussion with the motion on the floor.
I agree. So let's start with SPR 25-03, which would be on the north side of First Street between Washington and, it's on the back side of where the Empire was.
Yep, this one right here.
Can I ask what I think I already know the answer to, but maybe it will help with the discussion? This stipulation about the location, is the proposed cabinet within 10 feet from the intersection of a sidewalk or street at the edge of a driveway? I assume that the intent with that stipulation is the same thought as section 34-140, which is to not impede the driver's view of the street and sidewalk. Obviously, just like I said before, that's the only yes on a lot of these proposals, including this one we're discussing. Is that the only thing we're looking at? Does it obstruct the
Well, I
view?
guess I question the 10 feet, because looking at that photograph, we look much further than 10 feet from the intersection.
I think it's on this one, it's 2.5 feet from the, no, I'm sorry, not from the intersection, from the road.
Keep in mind that these are approximations on these photos.
Right.
That's probably not too far off. It's certainly not more than 10 feet.
From the corner of the picture to the box is approximately what we would be looking at in terms of the sidewalk intersection. So I think it's far enough away from the sidewalk intersection. Where does it say on here whether it is or not?
It's down in the chart at the bottom of page 2.
All right, I see it.
Yeah.
Fourth item from the bottom.
Yep.
And we're taking their word on it, so.
And the other thing about this ordinance is it doesn't, because it wouldn't, have zoning board of appeals relief. So nothing in this ordinance is taken to the zoning board of appeals because the authority of the zoning board of appeals falls under the Michigan Planning Act, which defines their authority. So this city code of ordinance, while it does direct the planning commission to do this, I don't believe anywhere in that ordinance allows for a variance of any of these standards. So that's another unique thing about this ordinance also, is that these questions are asked, but it doesn't address any variance from them.
I think I'm reading this the way that probably the person who filled this out read it, and I think it's the exact same thing we did wrong last time. If I'm rereading this again, it says, is the proposed cabinet within 10 feet from the intersection of a sidewalk or street and the edge of a driveway? In this proposal, that answer would be no. Not yes. It's not where the sidewalk or street meets a driveway. It's nowhere near a driveway.
Right, yeah.
No, and that looked to be the case in most of them.
Oh, that other one's really close to a driveway.
Well, closer, but we'd have to go out there and measure them to see if they were actually.
This one is clearly nowhere near it. I mean, if you look at the picture, the closest driveway looks like it's about 50 feet down the street.
So
But-
it almost looks like they put the wrong answer down.
Right, yeah, that
That's
should
what I'm
be-
saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
It should be
The
no.
answer is no.
Right. Yep.
Is there any requirement in terms of distance from a fire hydrant?
I had the same
Need
question.
to note that.
And it doesn't state on this picture what that distance is either. I wondered the same thing. I wrote that down. How close can you be to a fire hydrant? Is there a code? I assume there's some sort of fire code for that.
Well, wouldn't public utilities be responsible for that part of it? I mean, they're going to be reviewing this also.
Yeah, they would, well, through that Miss Dig program, well, they would do all the underground, but, you know, that's a good question.
I would recommend we get the fire marshal
Yeah,
involved
was
and
public
have him establish a
safety-
safe distance from a hydrant.
yeah, I don't know, I can't say for sure if public safety,
Is this required to have approval for that? Or could we make it a contingency that it is approved by whatever authority
yep,
that is?
Yep, yeah, we could definitely send that back through to the public safety specifically if that ordinance doesn't state it. Because let me see, do you think they need an electrical permit for these?
I know the parking is 15 feet
So
from,
they would need a permit. Pardon?
15 feet from what?
from a fire hydrant is 15 feet for parking.
I'm sure the intent is probably similar. I mean, you'd want to know
You would
exactly,
think,
but
yeah.
Right. Let's see here. I don't think I have that ordinance. No.
Do we want to consider postponing this until the other departments have had a chance to review what we're looking at? Much as
Similar-
we would with any of our site plan reviews?
Well, similar, or just make it a condition that they approve it. But similar thought to the fire hydrant is the electric, and maybe I'm just an idiot here, but is having them, just judging based on a picture and not with a tape measure, is it having it within that close to an electrical pole an issue?
Again, public utilities.
That's why I said it's a similar question.
I know the cabinet on Sixth Street in front of my house is about 2 inches from a pole.
I have one too, and it's the same thing by a hydrant.
Yeah. Let's just not perpetuate this stupidity, okay? But hypothetically, if they got, just like many other site plans and stuff that we have, we can approve it with the conditions that the other departments approve them. I mean, as far as we're concerned, unless there's something else in here, I'm thinking of specifically this case,
Right.
this cabinet. If there's nothing else, we could hypothetically approve it with conditions, right?
I don't see why not.
Okay, I don't
And
want to
it's
hold them up
not-
on our end for no reason. You know what I'm saying? If it can go to them, they approve it and they can move on, cool.
Yeah, and I would state that, at the time an electrical permit is obtained for each of this cabinets, that would be the time that, prior to that, we would have to have it routed through public safety. Each of these cases. So prior to the issuance of an electrical permit, all underlying city departments, including the public safety, would be reviewing this.
Brought this up, Ashley, so I think you should make the motion.
Oh, but Dennis likes doing it so much. He's so good at it.
I will move approval of case SPR 25-03, contingent upon receiving department approvals from all departments prior to issuance of an electrical permit.
Second.
I have a motion and support to approve SPR 25-03 with conditions. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Pose same sign. Motion passes.
I have a quick question on the motion. Does it need to include these conditions of issuance of a permit that's listed here at the end?
Let's see,
Usually, we've never done these before,
yeah.
No, I mean,
other than the one.
Well, I know when they pulled the permit for the first one, there were 2 boxes though, which was the active and the passive. So, but I don't know if that permit actually included the passive or if it was just the active. I don't know that for sure. That might make a difference.
I'm just saying for the sake of the motion and doing all
Yeah, I
our
would
due
say that
diligence,
those-
do we need to have that included? Does he need to add that condition to his motion?
Let me pose a question here. Do passive cabinets need electrical?
That was my thought when I said that, there were 2 cabinets for that first one. When they pulled that electrical permit, I don't know if it was for both cabinets or just like the active. I would have to look that up.
Be nice to have a representative to answer such a question.
Right, yep.
But my guess would be probably. Either way, you'd probably want to.
If it's low voltage, probably not. And a passive, I would assume a passive is low voltage just because it's passive. But I'm not an electrical engineer, so.
Me neither. Based on that, I want to rescind my motion.
So, motion stands as presented. We have a second.
I thought he withdrew his motion. Wouldn't we need a new motion on the
Yeah,
floor?
he was withdrawing that.
Well, you were withdrawing your motion, Dennis?
Say that again?
You were withdrawing your motion?
Yes, withdraw, if that's the term you choose.
Okay.
If we wait just a second, I do have the meeting minutes from the last meeting where he talks about the difference between the cabinets.
For the sake of discussion,
Oh.
I'd like to make a motion that the approval be contingent on all other department approvals. We can modify that any way you wish, but I want to get that motion on the floor so we can discuss.
I think the point that Ashley is bringing up is the conditions of issuance of the permit on the last page. We should read those into the record.
Yes, and I think I can answer Dennis's question about the power. If I'm reading this correctly, the minutes from the last meeting, it says, he explained an active cabinet is roughly blah, blah, blah dimensions. Only one powered cabinet will be installed, because this is when we were installing one of each. All others will be passive, that are simply giant splitters that will enable the fiber to be plugged into customers. So it's saying only one powered cabinet, which ipso facto implies that the other one is not a powered cabinet. But I think as far as electric is concerned, frankly, whether it's powered or not is not, I mean, not to say if it was powered, it wouldn't matter, but the issue would be, is the cabinet obstructing their ability to work on it? There's got to be some sort of setback or something, just like with the fire hydrant, same idea. There's got to be a certain amount of space around it, you know, that's got some sort of ordinance that there has to be a certain amount, you know?
Well, we're dealing with public right-of-way, so it's whatever the departments determine, I would, unless there's some MDOT or someone else has jurisdiction over the roadway.
Right, but we would have to still run it through them.
So,
right?
Right.
So I would still say that it should be in the conditions of the motion that it go through the electrical department, right?
So departmental review, all departments, might as well
Yep.
cover them all.
I think it's actually what Dennis, isn't that what you said, Dennis? That all departments, yeah, okay.
Drew that.
Unless Terry has specific departments he wants me to put in here.
No, I think just in, even the reference to these conditions of issuance of permit, as stated in the staff report, because this actually is taken right from the ordinance. So making reference to it would be appropriate, but I don't think you have to read each of the items. Yep.
So he's just saying you have to read it.
What these items are not contingency. They're not addressing what we're doing. They're addressing what the contractor has to do to get the permit. So it's not like the litany that we go through with any other site plan approval. Reading all of that doesn't gain anything on this because there's nothing we can change.
Well, yeah, but what Terry's saying is you don't have to anyway. Because it's in the ordinance. So
I don't have to read it?
that's what he's saying.
Oh, well, I don't have an argument.
Just make a reference to the staff
You
record.
just have to say,
Okay, I'll amend my motion to include that staff findings and recommendations shall cover the conditions of issuance of the permit.
And do we have
Or-
concurrence with the second?
second.
Well, so are we making that a new motion then?
I was amending my other motion, so let me read the whole thing.
Well, and I think you withdrew it technically, don't you have to resubmit? I mean, not to be a Robert's Rules of Order person, but
I made a new motion so we could discuss. Without a motion on the floor, you can't
We're
discuss.
having a new motion made. Go ahead.
but what I'm saying is you have to make it again, don't you?
The motion I made was that the approval be contingent on all department approvals
Right.
and follow the conditions of issuance of permit under the staff findings and recommendations.
All right.
Second.
We have motion and second to approve SPR 25-03. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now, we're going to move on to SPR 2504.
We're going to get the hang of it by the
Well,
fifth
yeah, by the
one.
time we get done,
Right.
just whatever we did before.
Now, we can't make a motion in the negative, so I will make a motion to approve contingent on all department approvals in accordance with the conditions of issuance of permit. This
Okay.
doesn't mean we have to vote yes, but it gets it on the floor so we can discuss.
Second.
Okay, sure.
We have a motion and support. Is there any discussion?
Yes, because I'm difficult like that. Going back, and I mentioned it before, but this is the case I was referring to, where it's propped next to this person's driveway. You know, one of these things, is it, you know, within the intersection of a sidewalk or street in the edge of a driveway? In this case, the yes answer is correct. So, you know, aside from the fact that we don't know whose property he's sticking that cabinet on, I mean, are we just choosing to ignore said stipulation?
I guess this one looks suspect to me that it's not even on right-of-way.
It's
I'm not
not.
sure what
It's
the
on-
right-of-way-
It's on the other side of the sidewalk. It's on somebody's property.
Well,
Or that alley, you know, I don't know. Do they need an easement for that?
Well-
In terms of an alley, there's a 20-foot wide right-of-way.
right,
If it's within that, that's fine.
right.
Based on sidewalk location, you're usually looking at 1 foot beyond the back edge of the sidewalk is where the right-of-way would be located.
Right.
So it's
Unless-
definitely not in the right place in relation to the street, but not knowing the limits of the alley, I can't really tell if it's in the alley right-of-way or if it is on private property.
It's not exactly the most to scale drawing on.
Yeah, because if it's 7 foot and that's a 5-foot sidewalk, they're saying that it's only 2 foot on the back edge of the sidewalk. That's a 5-foot sidewalk, because they're
Right,
saying.
and if it's
7
2 foot behind the sidewalk, that's probably private property.
Yep, because we do use the 1 foot rule to let people know where that front property line may be. But the way this picture is, actually, it would be within the 20-foot alley right away.
And let's not forget that this is a mega cabinet now. This is not some tiny little baby cabinet like in this picture.
Terry,
that's gonna-
does the city of Bay City have a clear vision ordinance for intersections?
Yes, and that is in the zoning ordinance. So when we apply fence standards or, well, typically it's fences and walls. But yeah, there is a sight zone. For driveways, it's 10 foot, forming a triangle going up the leg of the drive, not along the property line, but the actual drive itself. And then the other dimension is taken parallel with the sidewalk to form that triangle, and then that would be what's called a clear vision area.
And what's the height restriction?
Nothing greater than 3 foot.
3 foot. So if this is a 48-inch cabinet, we got a problem.
We do if they leave it where it's at. If they move it further into the alley, they would be in compliance. But they have to show us that they're actually in the right-of-way of the alley. And I
Right.
don't know how they intend to do that.
I don't know.
Well, and
And they probably need to be where they're at in proximity to that pole, I suspect, too. But that's not
you're
our
saying,
problem.
Dennis, going further,
Well,
I don't know what
you've got a clear
direction.
vision zone for the driveway. You're also going to have a clear vision triangle for the alley.
Right.
Right,
Right, I
that's
was
what I'm
just gonna
saying, why
say
we
that.
would have an,
So if they push it far enough back, it will be outside of that clear vision zone,
right,
as long as they're within the right-of-way of the alley.
right.
obviously, they can't go west on Third because they'll be, they'll be right in that driveway.
Right, you'd have to go, if that's west, yeah, you'd have to go
the
north.
other side of the driveway. Well, but if they hold that dimension off of Third Street, then they're in that property's front yard. They won't be in the public right-of-way anymore if they're 7 feet off the curb.
No, I think what they're, unless I'm misunderstanding, isn't, Dennis, what you're saying, that you go north? So that dimension would be much larger. If you set that back in the alley and then you go, you know, I don't know, 10 feet, whatever, further north, then you're next to that fence now. You know what I'm saying? That dimension off the street is gonna go from 7 feet to 17 feet, or what, you know, however further away you made it.
Right.
Right, it'd be like back in here then.
Well, the GIS, it looks like the property line for that resident is right on his driveway. That's the line.
I'm sorry,
On this driveway here? Yeah,
The GIS.
probably right where the fence is.
so you pull it up on your phone?
GIS is notoriously inaccurate, so I wouldn't hang my hat on that.
It's close enough for what we're looking at here.
Well, it's
The one we're looking at in the photograph is. Well, this one.
Well, as we stated in the other cases, it's not for us to maybe design and get their placement. So if, you know, if this one does have the question about the site zone and the representation, is that cabinet in the alley or where exactly is it in relation to the property line? I think should get some clarification on this one.
So this one, I would suggest we have a conditional approval with review by staff of the clear vision ordinance.
I'd like to modify my motion to include extra verbiage, that the cabinet must be placed within the alley right-of-way between Jackson and Van Buren and not be in any clear vision zone.
Second.
And that also included the staff recommendations.
That was part of the original motion.
We have a motion and a second for conditional approval on SPR 25-04. All those in favor say aye.
Oh,
Aye.
Oop, did you have a comment? I'm sorry.
yeah, before we, do you also want that to go through all other departments?
That was part of the original motion.
Well, but that's different, this is a different case, you can't, it's gotta be a,
No, the motion I made for, what is it?
You made one for this
SPR
one too.
2504.
oh, okay, I'm sorry, my apologies.
Okay.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, we'll move on to SPR 25-08. This is on west side of North McClellan Street, just south of 10th Street. And it appears that it's mid-block on the photograph.
I'm sorry, it appears that it's what, Dan?
I say it appears that the cabinet is located mid-block on the photograph.
And our little chart friend here that says yes to everything, we don't have a measurement for that, but I'm willing to bet that the right answer is no.
I don't understand why they even bother to answer that question, because they don't say anything about what they're going to do if they are within 10 feet. They just indicate that they are, even though it doesn't look like they are on this one.
Well, I mean, these are the, the regulations,
Yeah, are
so
these the standards out of the ordinance, Terry?
Yes.
my guess as to the thought of the ordinance would be just the same as with the right-of-way, is that you don't want to obstruct somebody's view out of their driveway. But, I mean, it wouldn't in this case because the answer's no. But in the case we just did, which the answer was yes, it would be an obstruction to their view from their driveway. When there's a mistake in the staff report, do you have to, I guess when you're going through it in your motion, do you have to correct for that? Because if you state it's as it is in the staff report, is wrong. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, are you referring to the specifics of the placement location or just some of the standards that we referenced earlier about the?
Well, you know, in our little 64, or excuse me, not 64, section 34, 144,
Right here, yeah.
where it's saying, is the proposed cabinet within 10 feet of the intersection of a sidewalk or street at the edge of the driveway? And it says yes. But the answer is actually no, even though I don't have a tape measure for the record. But my guess is that that was another mistaken fill out. Would you have to stipulate in your motion that it is in compliance with that particular stipulation?
You could, and part of this discussion would capture that, so there's no reason why it couldn't be included because of the type of discussion that we've had on it. So it would be clear that that would be changed to a no.
What was section 34, 144 chart completed by staff, or was that by the applicant?
That was by the applicant.
That was by the applicant, so it's,
Yep.
I don't know how we can second guess whether he said yes, but the evidence doesn't appear that it is. I don't know.
I mean, if that's the case, without the applicant here to speak to it specifically, I mean, wouldn't, if we are assuming that then that is correct, wouldn't we have to account for that?
If we assume it's correct, we can't approve any of these.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So I think as a contingency to all of these approvals, we need to stipulate that the cabinet is not within 10 feet of an intersection of a sidewalk or street or the edge of a driveway.
Can we do that
Better make it right.
retroactively? Can we do that retroactively when we've already passed those?
We've only done, what have we done, 2? And the second one was, we already had an issue with that. The first one wasn't.
Yeah, we do believe that it was a mistake of how the table was interpreted.
Yeah, they were all the same. I'm sorry, Terry, what?
Well, we do believe that those were filled in by them by mistake interpreting what it read. Because it,
So I'm sorry, what would our stipulation be that in the
saying-
Well, I think we
what?
could do it with a stipulation that it goes back for staff review, make it an administrative review.
Okay, so hypothetically, wouldn't we have to amend each case motion and then revote?
Only the first one, because the second one was clearly within the clear vision area, and it was going to need staff review, and we made that notation
Okay.
in the motion.
Yeah, I see
But
what
the
you're saying.
first one would have to be amended, yes.
Okay.
As
Yep.
part of staff review, can't we make the item something Terry checks so that we don't have to go back and do it over? Staff review includes Terry, so if Terry can check into this question and verify.
yeah, I definitely will be checking into the question.
I think we'll
Oh,
be
wait.
instead.
Going forward, yeah, but we've already completely passed and approved the original case. We'd have to do
just-
something specific to,
We approved it contingent on all department approvals.
so
That's-
Terry's the
So if
department?
Terry
Is
looks
that what
at
you're
it and
saying?
doesn't want to approve it,
Okay,
Terry's one of the departments, so,
I mean, I guess, sure, okay, I like it.
Yep.
okay. So did we make a motion on this one?
I will move to approve case SPR 25-08 for the sake of discussion.
Second,
Motion and a second to approve SPR 2508 with previous notations for review included.
oh, I just seconded it and then I realized that we may have another problem.
Pardon me?
There may be another problem that might need potential review by Terry, which is, one of the questions is proposed cabinet within 20 feet from a crosswalk? I mean, again, we're judging based on a picture, not a tape measure, but Terry, you might want to review that, just as a heads up. I don't think it affects anything.
Okay, and that's the crosswalk.
Since the applicant is the one that put that information,
I'm sorry, I cannot hear anything you're saying.
It's the applicant who put that information in there. If you look at them, it's just, he did one and copied and pasted and all the others.
Right, I think you're absolutely right. But my point was to Terry is you might want to double check that, especially in this case, to make sure that those measurements are accurate, because just like he said, it's probably copy pasted, but even so, this is the only one I noticed it being close enough that it could be questionable. But having the applicant fill in that table doesn't give me confidence that those are 100% accurate.
The other thing is the address could be wrong. I'm not sure that
The addresses on all of them are wrong.
There is no address on any of them.
Right.
Well, they actually are written in the summaries. They
They've
have
only
that.
listed
they show nearby or the closest,
Right.
whatever. But this one shows 1512, and I don't find a 1512. I find a
Closest.
512, but no 1512.
It shows on your little picture in the front, it's labeled as 1512.
1512 going north.
It's the 1500, all the other addresses are marked as 1500 block.
Okay, I couldn't pull it up. I don't know why.
Well, the language says closest address point. It's not actually assigning an address.
Right. Sheila just notes that she's accessing GIS right now and she can't find a 1512.
But I mean,
So
I can't explain that, but the picture shows 1500 block, 1600 block. I mean, you know, it looks like, because had the same question when this was all mislabeled. I looked at the addresses.
Yeah, I just thought I'd bring it up because I'm not sure why it wasn't pulling.
it's not like we have a normal set of standards that we're dealing with for this. And it's not even in the zoning ordinance. It just happens that we get mentioned in this particular ordinance that covers the cabinets. So I think if we put it back on the shoulders of the departments, we've done our due diligence, with the exception of those items that we've talked about with clear vision and obstructing someone's driveway. So
Through the chair to Ashley, your crosswalk concern, I would, we're already talking about being so far away from an intersection of sidewalks. There is no marked crosswalk on any of these. And I would assume that crosswalk would mean a marked crosswalk, not just the intersection of two sidewalks.
That's a solid question for city staff.
Crosswalk. Yeah.
yep.
I look at those definition section. What is a crosswalk?
My guess is that the intent of the question, AKA ordinance, would be the same idea as a right-of-way question, in that if there's somebody walking down the sidewalk or waiting at the intersection to cross the street, they're not blocked by a cabinet. So, in which case, it wouldn't matter if it was marked or not. But, who am I? It's just a guess. Again, city question.
Yeah, that's.
We have a motion. Did we get a second?
Yep. Yep, you did have a second.
Did you make a second on this one?
Maybe
Ashley
I've lost
seconded.
track. I don't
Ashley
know.
seconded. Yep.
If not, I second.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for,
I'd like to amend my motion because I only made it for the purposes of discussion, so I just was contingent on all departmental approvals. I'd like to add that the conditions of the issuance of the permit be met as well.
do I have concurrence of the second?
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second for approval of SPR 25-08 with conditions. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Two more. SPR 25-09. This is with the closest address point, 1514 3rd Street.
I got a new one, guys. Ready? Tree. There's one. See how the picture, and the only way I can tell this is because if you look in the picture, it's thoroughly shaded. And you can see the outline of the tree shading the potential cabinet location.
Yeah, but we don't know if that's 10 feet or not.
Right.
Depends on the time of day.
Terry. He's going to be driving around the city cursing my name. But yes, it's the same thing. It looks like it's underneath a tree. And so do I believe this little chart that says no, that it is outside of 10 feet?
Well, we don't have a tree in here as an issue. Oh, yes, we do.
It is, it's the third from the
Ah,
bottom.
we do.
Right, yeah, right
Yep.
there's a pro, within 10 feet from it.
Well, I'd suggest you look at the shadow of the telephone pole at the corner and realize that the sun is probably on a 45-degree angle.
Oh, yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
samesies.
It's probably on the other side of the sidewalk.
Huh? What do you mean, Doug?
Well, if you look at, as Dennis pointed out, the shadow of that telephone pole that you see down at the intersection is almost 45 degrees, which means if the shadow of that tree is 45 degrees, it's probably on the other side of the sidewalk.
But that doesn't matter
yard.
from a how many feet away perspective it
But, correct, we don't know.
is. Yeah. So again, Terry, get out that old measuring tape.
We
I would
could,
suggest we get a motion on the floor. Don't look at me, I've done enough.
I entertain a motion for discussion purposes.
Would you make that contingent on all departmental approvals?
I'd like to make a motion for case SPR 25-09 that the requested cabinet be pending administrative and all other departments' approval, and with the conditions of the issuance of the permit, be approved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. We have a second. Any further discussion? Any amendments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Oop. All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Final one, SPR 25-11. Closest address point of 250 Adams Street.
So remember all those other things, Terry? Yeah, they kind of all apply on this one, darn near. The telephone pole, the driveway, the access to the intersection, they're all real close.
It's like there's
It's
cabinets
actually
there
kind of
too.
foreshortened. This is on the Adams Street side of the Salvation Army building.
Is it? Looks like it's right behind Taco Bell.
Yes, it would
Yeah.
be.
Which way are we looking in this photo? North or south?
You're looking north. Salvation on the right.
Right up above.
They're on the other, yeah.
My mistake, we're kitty corner.
Yep.
Anywho, I would like to make a motion for case SPR 25-11 that the cabinet being requested be approved with the condition of all departmental reviews being approved and the conditions of the issuance of a permit be approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, that brings us to, I lost my agenda. Staff updates.
Staff
Terry.
updates. Well, right, it's going to be brief, but I'm looking to see the 7 copies of the zoning assessment that I printed out. Did I bring those to the meeting? Yeah, I got distracted before the meeting because I had to reset the computer, but Lisa, would you mind grabbing those? They've got to be somewhere here. Yeah, I have the zoning assessment. I didn't send it out after the last meeting like I had promised, so I do have a printed copy. Read through it. It should be right in our office somewhere, maybe even on the counter.
We're timing you.
Yep, you'll see them. 7 copies. Yeah, yep. So yeah, the zoning assessment, I had made my way through most of it. I will admit I didn't make it all the way to the end. I would comment that some of it is a little bit has to be better defined, because as they were going through the assessment, they did have to make some assumptions. And then, you know, I would be able to explain why some of those assumptions are better detailed than what is written in the zoning assessment. But it does, you know, capture the essence of what improvements we would be looking to do. So instead of having it up here on the screen and going through it, I would ask that you, at your leisure, I do have it here. Zoning assessment. So it's 32 pages long, pretty well covers a lot of different topics and sections and recommendations. So we could maybe discuss this at the next meeting. I only have cases probably for these utility cabinets, I believe. So, yeah, we could perhaps review this. And we are, I say this month after month, but now that we've got the sign ordinance done, we are having the meetings on the zoning ordinance, but right now it's just the front end of it. We're not really into any of the meat of it. I will inform the Planning Commission that the one speaker that we had at the podium who was at the previous meeting, he sent an email and I responded to it. Basically, I explained that we are engaged with a consultant. This information would be passed along to them, but I explained, probably better than I will tonight, the reasons why we're not going to go in and amend the ordinance right now at this time. He's more than welcome to participate in the process, the public meetings, but many of his recommendations were to try to amend the current ordinance. And I think in light of the fact that we have a consultant looking at the big picture and getting ordinances written specific for us, we don't need to kind of go on a side path and make revisions to the existing ordinance. So I sent that to him. I did not receive a reply. The city commissioner was copied. Have not heard anything back, but it was, you know, basically saying thank you for the information, but we're not going to pursue these revisions until we incorporate them into the bigger project of the zoning ordinance.
You did refer those recommendations on to the consultant though too, right?
Yes, and I also did, you know, advise my director and the city manager and had them read my reply before I did send it. So, yeah, the point was made that, yeah, we're not able to kind of go off track and start entertaining, you know, some of these proposed amendments. It just wasn't the right time to be doing so.
But if I'm understanding you correctly, so what you're saying is when it comes to address these within, you know, those discussions, we can address them then. So would it be overstepping or asking too much, I guess, for us to be able to view his comments if hypothetically one or few of us, maybe all of us will be having those conversations?
Yeah, I can provide that dialogue. Yep, I can provide those emails. Would you prefer it as part of the packet in the next meeting, or would you prefer it just, I can forward them tomorrow to you?
No preference. I just, before we get to that part of the
Okay,
conversation.
yeah, I can forward tomorrow. I'll forward the emails from Paul can't think of his last name right now, I can think of the spelling, but he did speak at public comment, so I will share with the Planning Commission that email and what he was proposing, and then my reply back to him.
Is there a legend for the map?
For this map,
Yeah. So what does the yellow mean? What does the purple mean, you know, on the
Or are these only,
the top page?
oh, this is just a snapshot of our zoning ordinance, so it's just
illustrative?
it's just kind of a cover page, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, they chose to put that as the cover page, but yeah,
Looks like
that's
they-
our future land use map, actually.
That's the same map, but it looks
Yeah.
like they even color-coded the dialogue in there, so my guess is, yeah, there probably is a legend somewhere, because if you scroll down, the text was even in those colors.
Okay,
So-
yeah. Yeah, this is something that,
Yeah, see how it's red? Yeah, you'd have to scroll down further,
okay,
more. See, red, blue, oh, maybe not, red, blue. I'd have to look at it, but,
I wasn't getting anything from it.
yeah, I think it's just a page filler.
oh, I see what
It
you're
would be
saying, that
nice
it's not
to
actually.
include it.
Yeah, because I don't believe none of that, what follows is directly in relation to the zoning map. They just chose to use the zoning map as a cover, and I guess throughout, because
Is this our current, or is this the proposed?
this is
Proposed.
taking a look at our existing zoning ordinance. So the zoning ordinance that we have currently, this is doing an assessment of that zoning ordinance.
Okay, so their comments and things are included in this document.
Right, so they would be pointing to, okay, we reviewed section 122-534 regarding, site plan review. Here's some of the recommendations that we would make for the site plan review. So,
So this kind of leads in, it's kind of a two-pronged question, but they kind of, one leads into the other. Are we getting a copy of this, I assume? And two, you talked briefly about, I think, but maybe not, about the meeting and our dialogues, and at one point we talked about like subcommittees and stuff.
yep, that's still gonna be.
And I know at the last meeting, I looked at the minutes, and we talked about, you speaking to someone about what that process was gonna look like. Do you have anything further to add on where you're at with that? Like where this fits in and our dialogue fits in too?
I don't. Part of the reason is because I know the last meeting that we had, which is probably the meeting I had to be an hour late for it. I only attended about a half hour of it. The other staff were on the Zoom call with the consultant, so I don't think I specifically brought anything up on my own during that call. But we do know, because it's discussed and in part of the contract, is the engagement of the Planning Commission, and we're right there. We're right there. Let's see, I think I have a meeting this Friday on it. Let me check. And I will inform the group that the Planning Commission would appreciate, kind of a schedule and timeline as to when some of these different chapters might be discussed, for you guys could be aware more on a timeline.
And I don't know I know way back we talked about who might be interested in being in these committees, like how many people are interested, and then just when would these meetings take place, how often, those type of logistical questions would be good to.
Yeah, as I recall, it was yourself and Sheila that were the two that were
Right.
interested in that.
And
Well, and then there was some discussion with the consultant that it could be different members depending on the topic being covered. So if one of the members, like say Doug, has, lot of background or issues with housing topic, that perhaps Doug could be brought in, kind of on that review process because he's, familiar with that. Dennis and some others might be assigned to take a look at the site plan review chapter, because I know we talked about having that revised and making sure that it meets the intent. So some of it would be, specific. I haven't, other than them having a general knowledge of our planning commission members, we haven't actually decided who would be on each of those subcommittees. But it was the first time that I understood that it probably won't be the same two people throughout the whole zoning ordinance, because the idea that they had stated was to try to get some of the expertise maybe from some of the other members.
So maybe the thought would be to kind of have, instead of having like fixed or assigned people, set a time that generally works for most people, have, say it's every Wednesday, every first Wednesday or whatever, whatever. And then have that just be open to whoever is available and wants to come or feels that they have expertise. And then, maybe every meeting here, just have anyone who did attend that meeting, fill us in on anything that they thought was relevant. And then just say the next meeting we're going over this topic for anybody who would like to come and lend their
And I think
support.
prior knowledge of what those meetings are going to be covering to us would be very beneficial, so.
Right, and then if you have expertise, and I think personally, more minds is better than less, so obviously, I wouldn't say, oh, no, don't come if you want to come, like open to everybody,
The only
but,
thing I caution is we are a public body and we don't want to get into an open meeting act violation, so we cannot have a quorum in attendance at any of those sessions
so
without
what you're saying is we can't have, what
four.
was it, 4?
Quorum is four.
Right, 4 would be a quorum, because then you have to, publish it as a meeting of the planning commission.
Well, hypothetically, at the meeting before, when you talk about, okay, we're going to do housing, who would like to attend? Okay,
Right.
there's
Well,
2 or 3
and that's
of us.
why
I
I
mean,
s-
what's the likelihood that the 4 of us are going to be like, yeah, me, and we're available?
That's why I suggested prior knowledge to us of what the meeting schedule is going to be
Yep.
important, so.
Through the chair to Terry, how many visits has the consultant agreed to make with us?
They agreed to do 2 meetings through the city commission process, because that is a first reading and a second reading. And then I believe there was a total of, I want to say 5 different meetings with, the larger body of the planning commission.
Oh, but as a whole?
I do believe, if I didn't, I think just a few meetings ago, I did send to you the RFP and then the proposal of what the consultant had replied to.
It's familiar.
Yeah, matter of fact, in my discussion with Paul, I did also include that. So obviously, I'm willing to share it. If I didn't, that was my mistake.
Yeah, resend that if you could, please.
Yeah, yep. I can definitely resend that.
If that's the larger body, I know that subcommittees were talked about, or the subcommittees just tacking on to other meetings between city staff and them, and then we're just attending those meetings? Or hypothetically, where they're supposed to be entirely separate meetings?
Yeah, separate meeting, because I know it would be independent or different than the meeting that we have, because I see on the calendar, the next one that I have is July 24th. And then the one after that is,
If they were separate, then there's probably so many that they've agreed to, and we would
August
have to
7th.
probably take that into consideration as far as scheduling.
yeah, I mean, this part of the schedule is, incorporated with the staff to, go through this, but then anything in the RFP that was specific as to the action with the Planning Commission, then it was spelled out. So I'll happily provide that RFP, which was the request of what we were looking for, and then the proposal, which is their proposal back to us explaining how they're able to meet those proposed plans that we had. Yep.
I assume that's the final contract, that whatever they proposed, and then we hired that, so there wasn't any.
Right, and then I would remind you that, this was all being paid for by grants through MEDC. So Shelley Thurston in our Economic Development Office is doing a lot of the processing of the invoices, unlike past work. I know I've had to process the payments for, the different master plans, but I don't believe any pay requests have come through yet. Yeah, so I guess that's all tied to the grant because I have not had to approve any payment request. So it's handled a little bit differently just because of the type of grant that was received and the reporting that we also do have to go back and do. That's part of the grant requirement.
So did we get a copy? I feel like we did. Did
I
we
believe-
get a copy of that, of their, when you picked them, of their proposal?
It
Didn't
seemed
we?
like I remember that.
Yeah, I'm going to resend it though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we could get another, or, just let us know when you sent it.
Yep, no, I can resend it because it is worth reviewing because it asks what we were looking for and then how they were going to provide that.
And then I'd like to shift to a totally, well, not totally different gear, but pretty close to a totally different gear unless there's any more.
I don't.
No. I noted I noticed in the minutes from last meeting that you said that there was approval for a zoning enforcement official.
Yes.
Is the process begun for that?
Today I printed off the job description and that's as far as I got.
Okay.
So I am going to be reviewing that. I do expect minimal change because it was put together back in 2016, I believe, or 17. So I believe that it's there. I was going to review it one last time before working with HR.
Okay, so, and I don't know how much dialogue there's been about what the new role would look like, but do we have a better grasp on what their roles and responsibilities are going to be? Or is it just kind of that's the default because that's what already existed?
No, it's spelled out in the job description because any of the job descriptions that we have here at City Hall do go through a union. So they're approved by the union contracts and things, so they're aware of it. So yeah, every position that we have is a union position, and those job descriptions are specific and followed.
Is it unreasonable at this point, considering how much things I've asked you to send us, but is it unreasonable to also request that, just to have an idea of what they're doing going forward?
As far as
Just the job description.
a job description,
I mean, I could track it down too, it's gonna be publicly posted, but I was
Right.
just curious what they were gonna be doing and.
yeah, you won't find it just yet. Yeah, because I still do have to take a look at it and see if I would be amending it. So yeah, I still have. And then I do have, I guess, an announcement. I'll be out of the office for a few days next week. So other than that, when I get back, things will get ready for the next batch of utility cabinets for the Planning Commission.
Good times. Okay, I have another change of gears. It's a very short question
Okay.
because I don't pay enough attention. Did the sign ordinance get passed and it have to go before the city commission?
Yes, it did get passed. There was that presentation that was given by the consultant on the first reading, and then I was present for the second reading, and that went through with no questions.
Okay, so that's finalized, finished.
Yep, that's finalized.
Is that available on the city's website?
Yeah, that would always be in your commission packet. So like right now for Monday night's agenda, I have a revision to the right-of-way ordinance. I might have mentioned it before. It requires 4 publications, which have become too costly. So I worked with the city engineer or the city attorney to revise that ordinance, and we were able to only have to publish it once instead of the 4 times. And that 4 times has been written in the ordinance for any document that I had read regarding a vacation, no matter what year. It did make reference to those 4 publications, but I did go through the city attorney. He checked into all the law. He stated that there was no requirement for the 4 publications. So that was one of the amendments. And then there was another one I can't quite think about, but yeah. And, you know, if we weren't getting ready to engage and do all this zoning ordinance, I probably would take a look at that utility cabinet ordinance, but it'll have to wait.
Okay, so that should be available soon on the website, right?
Yes, yep. Once it goes for the second reading, then the change is published in the newspaper, and then it becomes effective. And then if you're on the city webpage and you're looking, the easiest way to find our codes is to go to the main webpage, and then up in the top left, it says government. If you open up that menu, it'll kind of pop up. Just in the center, it says Code of Ordinances, and then you click on that, and MuniCode will open, which is a typical software program for municipalities with their codes in place. And that whole new sign code, including all the new graphics, will be incorporated into the ordinance under that particular chapter. The chapter we work on is the chapter 122, the zoning ordinance. But then, as you know, the Planning Commission does have some involvement with these other chapters of the Code of Ordinance.
So the sign ordinance isn't posted yet? It is?
It is, yep.
Okay,
Because
great.
we had a question about permits that were in the office and ones that are continuing to come in. So we
So
are
if-
applying the new sign code.
If you need any late night reading,
Yep.
there you go.
You betcha.
Yeah.
Well, I was, pleasantly surprised that we were able to get the sign code adopted, and it didn't get derailed in any way. Good. Yep, very, very happy with that.
Fantastic.
Is that it,
Motion to
Barry?
adjourn?
Yeah.
Any items not on the agenda? Anybody wish to bring up? I would entertain a motion to adjourn, if not.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion in a second. Sheila?
Aye.
Aye. We don't have to vote. It's always in order.
Yeah, I'm not as long as the staff report is referenced, I always felt that there wasn't a need to repeat all that. As long as you're making a reference to it and that doesn't change, then I know my